what happens actually. So through doing all of that and meeting people over and over again, I've slowly moved towards working with people's dreams, working with trying to find a deeper level of talk exactly like this. This is a Dharma talk because it's about consciousness. Not necessarily coming out of traditional Dharma teaching. It's coming out of my experience as a meditation teacher for a long, long time in two different traditions: the Tibetan tradition, the Vajrayana tradition, the Shambhala tradition, the Zen tradition. Here I am, an old person, and I started when I was in my early 30s. I started reading about Buddhism when I was in the Marine Corps. So it's been a long trip. So I've also trained lots of people to teach meditation in the Shambhala tradition and the Vajradhatu. So that being said, as a kind of a preamble, what is give you a little example. My wife is fully ordained because she's been through this. So I don't really want to bring a completely new person up here and try to go through a process that starts to open up things that this person is it's a surprise to them, and because I've actually had people working with people's deep consciousness. Not the words I'm using, deep consciousness. I don't know what it is, but I would say to you, don't believe or disbelieve. And when I say that, I know you can't help but believe or disbelieve, because I know I'm kind of stuck with that. You know, I was asking Unyo on the way in, do we believe and disbelieve? Do we believe the temple is still there? Well, yeah, we're driving towards it, so we must kind of just take that for granted. But what I'm saying is investigate when something comes up, especially if it's some kind of an opinion that's coming up about something. Look closely at that and see how much actual evidence you have for that. All evidence is partial. And you could say, well, is that your opinion? Maybe. But I'm not saying don't have opinions. I'm saying inspect them and see what the opinion is. See actually how it works, how it affects everyone. See what it's based on. See how much you have an opinion you're not investigating all the time, then it's what we call in the Buddhist fixation. You are fixating on something rather than continuing to look, because continuing to look is painful, because what does it feel like? Like you don't know what you're looking at. It's like looking in a jungle all the time. I highly recommend. There's a strong sense of who you are, a strong self happening here. It's going to be scary for you, so you'll shut down. But if you can transcend this individual being and see that there is no solid self there, then you're fearless. I'm not saying you're not afraid. Fear comes and goes. It just can't find anybody. That fear can't find an audience. It can't find Davidians. It can't find any of those entities. Can't find them. It's still there, and you may actually feel the raw and rugged and ragged emotions going through you. But that's just life. Life is like that. We go through all kinds of things. But everyone in our life, including ourselves, has a different level of grasping at a self, grasping at another. Those who do that intensely are going to war with somebody, something, either in their own gut, in their own mind, in their own heart. They're fighting with something. And if that gets too much, they might transfer it out into the world and go to war with the world. And not wrong. It's not. We're not talking about bad or evil. We're talking about a misunderstanding that sometimes gets really, really intense. So we do the best we can. I do the best I can. My motivation is to help people where they're at. Very simple. You can't help someone where they're at if you're constantly trying to get them to come to where you're at so you can do your protocol with them. Move this, don't do, move this, and on and on. So you need to go into their jungle, into their territory, and don't take anything other than your senses. Go in there with your sense consciousnesses and leave as little paraphernalia behind you as you can. You're going to need something, so that would be up to you. If your own meditation, your awareness practice is really strong, you'll be well prepared. So conventionally, what I do when I'm in the Hojo, which is the interview room, and have been doing for a long time, is sit down. A person comes in, maybe give them meditation instruction, beginning meditation instruction, Maybe I've never met them before. Tell them how I teach this and ask them if they have questions. It might not last very long. And work with them where they're at. There might be all kinds of interaction happen. Someone else might come in maybe the first time, maybe right away, or maybe after I've known them for a year or two. And then what I've noticed is more so in the last year than ever, this has come up, is that people are intensely, some people are suffering so much, or so that you can see why people would want to just end their life. They're so miserable, and you look around and you say, man, everything's fine. What's the big deal? Relax, enjoy yourself. Here, have some chocolate milk. I don't mean to be silly. I'm just saying, settle down, relax. But if you've got a knot inside, if inside your heart, inside your chest, it's like that, how can you help that person unless you can meet them in that tightness? You have to meet them there. You can't sit outside and be the wonderfully enlightened or almost enlightened. I know nobody's going to say, well, I'm enlightened. I'm pretty close to enlightenment. Not yet. I'll get there pretty quick. But I'm so close that I can really help everybody if they'll just follow my advice and do what I say. Probably not. On the other hand, even doing what I'm saying, even going in and meeting someone where they're at can still produce not so much of a result at all. You might be very disappointing for you as a meditation teacher that you can't be of more help to this person. But you may be a lot more help to this person than you think. You may not be getting accolades from them, but you'll notice they want to talk to you. They keep wanting to talk to you because at least you're joining them in that difficulty. You're going into that, you're talking to them about it, you're with them. So we have the daily Dharma gathering talk at 12 o'clock is because of, I don't name these talks. Well, I do, but I forget them. Is called reincarnation, I think. So that's kind of brought me to a little bit to doing this. Not only now, but at 12 o'clock I'll give a talk that is broadcast under some kind of subscription or something. I can't remember. So we'll have another 8 or 10 people join us there. And I'll talk about that, but I'm not going to just talk about it. I'm actually going to give a little bit of a demonstration or a sample or an idea of how I work, when I'm working with this in this way, I keep running into something that looks like another lifetime. I don't know that it is. And I don't tell anybody to believe that, and I never mention other lives or past lives when I'm talking to someone. They tell me, this happened. They tell me that it happened in this century. So I don't know what that is. Maybe it's not that at all. But it's very important not to turn away from anything. Let's look at it. Let's do it together. Let's all try to look and see what is there. Some people are very, very sensitive to this. Some people just surprise me because they're very conservative people who will never bow to this, will never do the sutras, but they'll come in and meditate. So they want to meditate and they want to talk to me. So they have a little bit of a connection there. But then I work with them and suddenly they're in some other century and they're telling me what's happening there. This has happened many, many times. I'm not talking about 3 times. So, any questions so far? Good. I made myself very clear. You notice there was no questions. So we don't have a lot of time because we have to, 1:45, we have to go into, what's that other mode? Daily Dharma gathering. So, have I missed anything? Or is there anything else you should be doing? Okay, so it'd be difficult for anyone to call in because Unyo is the one who usually connects up with people that are off in a distance. So she's going to actually be the I'm not going to call you a guinea pig. So we've worked, just to let you know, we've worked this way quite a bit, and Unyo is also fairly mediumistic. She is able to actually move consciousness around quite a bit more than the average person. But even the average person, you could say, this wouldn't happen. This can happen if you have a facilitator. Very hard to do this, even if you have a lot of abilities here to do this completely on your own. Having a facilitator actually helps you move your consciousness around. So, as I said before, this is an example of something that can be done. If I were to say, do this with you, might not find anything. Might not be anything that's fits with the example you're going to see pretty quick. I just want you to be aware of this, that this is a possibility. This world is not just earth, water, fire, and air. There's a lot more happening here. But if your consciousness is materialistic and you're stuck on this, then you're just here. You're working in this, like Plato's cave. You're working in that realm, and that's what you think is true. So it's not necessary. You can liberate yourself. Okay. So if I can have some help rearranging this a little bit, it shouldn't take too long. So I don't know who's going to run this, but it probably needs to sit right where Casey is, I would guess.
Grab this.
Just so it gets us both in there. Gotta have to not all. That'll work. That works good. So this is in training in Shambhala many years ago. It's called a mock interview. You would sit down and train. That's how they train people to teach meditation. And this isn't exactly that, but takes that kind of form. And so we've done this many times. So we were gonna, we can talk. So we decided to work with an issue that you have, which is
a primary issue is jealousy, but beyond, even deeper than that, I feel a sense of abandonment,
okay.
Being left out, and it just keeps arising again and again, and I find myself wanting to isolate and to, when I do have an opportunity, it's really hard for me to include myself in things when that seems like maybe the appropriate thing to do.
How much do you practice? Sitting meditation, how much?
I try to sit about an hour a day.
Okay. You sit longer? You're sitting longer during this Ango, this retreat?
Trying to. Yeah.
How much?
Maybe a couple hours off and on.
So that's the first thing I would say, and I would say this to anyone. I would say, sit as much as you can. The awareness that is observing and seeing and witnessing things and includes all the feelings and everything, the more clear that is, the more you'll see how that whole thing operates. You can actually do this, as is my understanding, and I could be have misunderstanding, that you could do this through sitting meditation. You could actually clear up this kind of abandonment situation, but it might take a long time. It's very possible. The causes and conditions that arise as this person, and everyone here are so varied. I like to say that you're like the mouth of the Amazon, and where you came from is like billions of little tributaries running back through time and space to beginningless time. We've all been here forever. Here we are again, trying to learn a couple lessons. Good luck. So go ahead, we'll finish our interview.
Well, just, and as I sit and look at the wall, the same thing seems to come up over and over and over again, and I'm ready for it to be done. I feel like I'm really stuck, and
Okay.
How can I?
Okay, so this would just go out of the whatever you call the script, I guess, a little bit. This is something that has come up with quite a bit, and when this really comes up with us, especially if they're really getting desperate. She didn't sound that desperate right now. That's not doing too bad. And she actually is, if I may say, is working a lot better with that than in previous times. So a person would be have to have a lot of difficulty, and sometimes people, if it gets too difficult, they stop seeing me and they go see a psychiatrist or a therapist and get medication to cover it up. And I'm not saying that's wrong. If it gets really difficult, that might be what you have to do. So I'm not saying, well, this is right and everybody else is wrong. So you should trust yourself. You'll know what you need to do. You might need to see, where's my acupuncturist? There. You might have to see an acupuncturist. You might have to see your mom or dad or one of your friends. So I'm not trying to set up some kind of a protocol that is right and everybody should follow it. I'm not trying to sell you anything. My enthusiasm over it might look like that. Okay, so do I have your permission to look deeper into your consciousness?
Yes.
Okay, so sit back a little bit, close your eyes, hands in your lap, and if you feel like using your vocal cords, you can just talk, but the right finger, you raise the right finger for a yes and the second finger for a no, and all the fingers for an I don't know, and this will help you kind of disengage a little bit from the mental apparatus that's hooked to the vocal cords. Now maybe you can bypass that, maybe not, but I'll let you decide. Okay? Okay, so counting and going back into deeper, higher consciousness, whatever word works for you, deeper, higher, Buddha nature, whatever you want to use. Going back 1, going back further, relaxing completely, going back further, 2, further and further back, 3, completely back into higher consciousness. So higher self of Unyo, do you hear me? Have a finger raised. So higher self, deeper consciousness. The feeling of being abandoned, can you contact that? Are you aware of that? Can you recall that emotion, feeling? Can you let me know if you can?
I see images of being a baby over and over again
Okay.
in various settings.
Okay, so go, and this is the word that I generally use for everybody, and I probably don't need to use it for you right now because you're already there. But I would say go to another time, another place. Go to another time, another place when this either started or you felt like this. Go there. As soon as you see images, there may be an open space you go through of nothing happening. As soon as you see images, let me know what you see.
I see a field, and here again I'm a baby, it looks like,
Yes.
and I see an image of an Indian chief standing over me.
Yes. What's happening?
I'm crying, and he's reaching for me.
And then what happens?
And then I'm being picked up, handed over to a woman standing next to him,
Then what happens?
and I see the sky, and it all dissolves.
Okay, I'll count to 3 and you tell me what year it is. 1, 2, 3.
1604.
1604. Okay, how are you feeling there in that space? How do you feel?
It's all happening very fast. Like I'm not even connected.
So spread your awareness and around that what you're calling a chief, and around the baby. Spread the awareness. Let the awareness spread all the way around to that. What else is happening there? What's going on there? What do you see?
I've come back and into like a community of Indians, a tribe
Okay.
of some sort.
Yes.
With tent teepees and
Yes.
a fire, and being brought into
Yes.
that, which feels very settling.
Yes. Feel safer or
Yes.
settling?
Yes.
Okay. And how, go to the time, go the other direction in time and tell me what you see about being abandoned, if such a thing is happening with this baby.
There's a young girl who was pregnant and
Yes.
had to hide
Yes.
in the woods, and
Who's the young girl? Spread your awareness. Feel whatever feelings that come up, just stay with them.
looks like from another Indian tribe.
Yes. And then what happens?
So she leaves me.
She leaves you. How old are you in this?
That's that same. It's like the transition from. And then I see her running from the field.
Yes.
And, her child is abandoning.
Okay.
She's running after them, and
Who is she in relationship to the baby?
it's the mother.
Mother. And where is your consciousness in this area?
I'm watching this.
Where are you at?
I'm lying in the field in a blanket.
Are you in the baby?
Yes.
Yes. And how are you feeling?
Scared,
Yes.
not knowing anything.
What happens next?
And then this other chief finds me.
Can you see that this is a memory of something that has already happened, it's in the past? Those feelings of abandonment, that those are,
It feels real today.
yeah, it's real today. So bringing down light into that, into those feelings and those emotions, does that help to see more clearly what's, that it's something that's already happened, it's in the past, it's gone. It's already gone.
Yes, it helps.
Yes. So bringing down light from light beings, your guides, protectors, anything that is protecting you, taking care of you. We're asking, supplicating for that to occur. Bodhisattvas, Buddhas of the 10 directions, the 3 times. What are you seeing now?
It's dissolving all
Yes.
into light.
Yes, and what happens to the baby?
Just it's part of that.
Okay.
Light.
So higher self, Avunyo, is there anything else we need to look at here today?
Not today.
Okay. So I'll count to 3, and you'll come back out of this deeper consciousness into present time and place, remembering everything that occurred, and leaving all of those difficult feelings and emotions that were coming up back there, leaving them back there in the past. Do you understand? So 1, coming back. 2, almost back. 3, completely back. Anything?
It's pretty strong.
Yeah. I don't think we've been to that one. So that was completely new. Any questions for me or for Unyo? Well, that's good. Michael?
What kind of emotion do you have now about that whole thing?
It's kind of a calm, but pretty flat otherwise.
So it seems as if it started with this feeling of abandonment, and then there's a moment where you asked to raise your awareness, and then awareness led to an understanding of that and acceptance, or peace that came with being found. Do you think that it's that awareness of the memory, or what you saw in more complete terms that made you feel better?
It all happened so fast that there really weren't even any words, such as you just used. So I'm not sure what that was, but it just had a sense of safety, maybe is a word to be used. The concept of acceptance, it's beyond that. It's way beyond that.
What did you feel when you...
Just intense emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Was there a story with it?
Just really intense emotion, connecting with her. Still there, actually. There's no story. I don't know what it is. I just know it's intense. Happens quite a bit. So any questions for me or for, yeah, here, go ahead.
How did you know you were in 1604?
I don't know.
And I'd like to say, we're not making any claims, but this happens consistently. People sometimes say to people who think, I think I'm just making that up, and I'll say, you don't have that good of imagination. You can make that up that fast and tell me how you looked and how the country looked and what your clothes looked like and what the building looked like and what color the dog was. And people do this consistently. There's lots of people in here who've been through this, and people that are possibly watching this. So it's pretty intense, but it's so ordinary. And you notice I'm not, years ago I would try to take somebody into a deep trance because I had the preconception. This is a preconception. You see? I don't. That's a preconception of what needs to be done. Don't do that. Meet everything where it's at, and that will tell you what you need to do with a person. You know, I have people come in that I've talked to 10 or 20 times. I've never done this with them because they're focused on their meditation practice, on clarifying their mind, and they aren't, shall we say, afflicted with some really intense kind of feeling. Some people just are carrying around this big rock inside their chest, and in years past, I would say, well, just meditate more. I didn't know what else to do. Sit more. I had one of those too, but I meditated for years and years and insisted and went into retreat, and finally some of that dissolved. Some of the fear dissolved. But if you meet someone that's doing that, this is another way of working with it. And, some people I talk to, they get a lot of relief. Some people don't. It's so complicated. It's so extremely complicated that I've never done this with anyone where it's been a very similar, other than one of the things is very similar. They always know the date. Sometimes you have to say, well, I don't really know, I can't quite see. And they say, well, what's the first number? And they'll tell you the number one at a time until you have the date, yes.
It seems it's always a different lifetime. Is it ever this lifetime?
Yeah. Ever this one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can go back to something that happened when you were 4 or 5 years old that's buried.
Does that happen often? Do you see that as often as the other one?
Quite often, yeah. And we go back and relieve that, and then I do something similar so this is something that's past, and I encourage the person to review the feelings but not necessarily re-feel it. I don't, it's so different with each person. I don't think you necessarily have to make yourself go through feelings. So I don't direct someone to do that other than say, feel it. And if they don't feel too much, then that's fine. But if they go into deep, some people have really, really deep. I've had people sit in the hojo for an hour and a half and cry most of the time, going through 3 or 4 different, what, are they lifetimes? I don't know. Here's a person that rarely cries, going into all of this with completely different stories about everything, and just very easily moving from one to the next. I don't know what it is. I just know that it seems to be for some people, seems to be very helpful to go in and do this kind of a past life review. I've never done this. I'm not wired that way. You can't. I've had professional hypnotists try to put me in a past life. It won't happen. I mean, I'm just saying it won't happen, but it hasn't. And I'm not even interested. I had a psychic one time tell me I was an Indian and was murdered in a war. So, yeah, that sounds probably so. There's a whole lot of aggression back here. That's how I got into this business. Yes.
And, were there other sensations, like physical feeling or smell or sound, or is it entirely visual for you?
There was some of that, yeah. Like just the natural being out in the open with the wind, but mostly visual. And I think just from this standpoint too, as Sokuzan said when we started, it's really not important to either believe or disbelieve. The word that fits for me is receive, and however that shows up then as something useful, a useful experience, then that's what's valuable for me anyway.
Further questions? So as I said, don't, insofar as you can, don't believe it, disbelieve it. You're already taking a position on it. You can't help it. We can't help but take a position on it. And I'm just saying, don't believe the position. Just notice that you've taken a position. I don't know what it is. I just notice that my primary motivation is to help people where they're at. Yes?
Do you ever, like the session yesterday and the session today, this one was a little shorter, do you ever limit a session? Do you ever have somebody go somewhere and have to kind of bring them out of it because of whatever they're encountering.
I let them decide. I let them work with them and find out what they want to do. And when you talk to somebody's higher self, we're not saying this is some kind of weird higher self that's lurking in the background waiting to take over. We're saying that it's you. It's actually you where you're not mistrusting yourself. It's just you. We move out of this area of being in a physical situation into a higher dimension or higher wavelength. You know, I don't want to get too fancy about it, but you know, it's a area. I've noticed that the people who are I don't know, adept at this or skilled at it or have it naturally would be Shoka and Unyo. Then in their everyday life, when you talk to them, they're really kind of unsure about stuff. They kind of vacillate a lot, and you know, they're not really sure. But when they're in this dimension, they're very, very confident about what's happening. There's no, and I've even had her and Shoka correct me if I start to kind of wander off. That's not what's happening. Actually, you know, because they're seeing it, they're coming out of what they're seeing or what they're experiencing, and their mind that is there, the awareness is there, has a little bit different, maybe vibration or something for whatever it's worth. But I would say, don't believe it, don't disbelieve it. Don't believe it, don't accept it. I'm not preaching anything, and don't disbelieve it or walk away or never think about it again or whatever. Just look at it. It will constantly change. Buddhist teaching of impermanence. Nothing lasts. If you think something lasts, come and talk to me about it. I'd like to hear about that. Yes.
Do they ever go back, do people ever go back to the same place?
I can deliberately take her back there's a place where she was trampled by horses. We've been back to just kind of look around and see what happened before and after. Another fellow who is not here, who actually spontaneously goes back to the same lifetime where he was murdering people. So they will go back, and then, but it'll be a very similar. It'll be the same situation, the same building, the same people showing up. So
We have to dedicate.
So we can dedicate the merit right now. Okay, and then we'll move on to the daily Dharma gathering. Thank you all for your attention and your indulgence.
In the back of your blue chant books is a dedication of merit. Also, like to remind everybody, you do have a donation box in the hallway. For those online, please donate online.
May the merit of this penetrate into all places, so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Jiho san shi shihu shizon mu sa moko sa moko the 10 directions, the 3 worlds, all Buddhas.